Thank you for being here. Good evening. We warmly welcome you to this meeting with our colleagues from South Africa, the latest eamba member. We are very, very happy that you joined us and eager to learn about your developments and your work. So thank you for taking the time to share what you're doing and to allow us to learn from your experience. I would love to give the floor to Janine, the president of the Institute of Mindfulness in South Africa, to briefly introduce this meeting. And then we will make sure that all of us have possibilities to ask questions after the South African colleagues have given a short presentation in which you set the stage. Before, I said this, Janine, so you know, but before we exchange the speaking, the microphone, for those who have not been here before, I would like to just summarize a bit what eamba is and what our mission is and why we are here. So eamba is, meanwhile, an international association of teachers of mindfulness, and we connect with each other, we support each other, and we want to learn from each other. The vision we have is that together we can create mindful and compassionate societies. And to give that an actual example tonight, before Janine is taking the floor, I would like to ask you to have a minute of silence and think of our colleagues in countries where there is war and where they, like the colleague who is here, Marina from Ukraine, are doing their best to support the people who are suffering, who are being traumatized, and who are anxious to lose the life they had, the peace they had. Thinking of the people in Gaza, the people in Israel, the people in Lebanon, the people in Jordan, and in fact, thinking of all people, because we all want peace and be free of war and conflicts. Thank you. Let's keep that feeling of wishing for peace while we are together here, listening and interacting. Janine, please.
Thank you, Katerina, and thank you so much for inviting us to speak about our organization. We really appreciate this, so thank you very much. So my name is, I like the way that Katerina says, it actually is Janine Kirby, but most people call me Janine here in South Africa. And I am the chairperson of the Institute for Mindfulness of South Africa. So I'm just going to be sharing the screen. And it's just really lovely to see a lot of South Africans at this meeting too. So not only will we be speaking to eamba, but we'll also be speaking to our fellow South Africans. So IMISA stands for the Institute for Mindfulness of South Africa. And the way that we're going to be running this meeting is that we're first just going to give you an introduction to IMISA, a little bit about who we are, about the context that we found ourselves in. And Dr. Linda Cantor is one of our founder members, as well as senior teacher, and she's actually going to be telling us a lot about the origins of IMISA and how we came to where we are. And I'll be telling you also a little bit more about the everyday work that we do. And we're going to be weaving stories from our bursary recipients into telling you about IMISA. And then afterwards, we hope that we'll be able to have a discussion and we'll be able to talk about things in a little bit more detail. Just to say that where I am, it seems like my internet connection isn't great, so I'm going to be moving to another part of the house. So in case you see that I disappear in between times while Linda's speaking, don't worry, I'll be coming back. I'm just finding a better internet connection. So Linda, I'm going to be handing over to Linda now, but the Institute for Mindfulness was established in 2007. And Linda's going to tell us now a little bit more about how IMISA started all that time back. So over to you, Linda.
Thanks, Janine, and thank you, eamba and Katerina and the team for inviting us. And thank you to everybody who's arrived here. I can see a lot of South Africans, so which is really heartwarming to see you. And so a lot of what I share is going to be maybe stuff that you know, and there might be some voices that I call on in the course of this little sharing, but we'll see how we go. So let me just put this up here. Can everybody see that? Yes. Right. Myself and my colleague, Dr. Simon Weitzman, if I think back to the many years ago when we went to meet John Kabat-Zinn and to train in mindfulness-based stress reduction, I could have never predicted how it would take root in South Africa and the beautiful way in which it has grown here. And about 10 years ago, he and I were writing a book chapter for, I don't know if some of you know the resource for teaching mindfulness by McCowan. And so we were writing a chapter for that about mindfulness in South Africa. And I wanted to call it Somewhere Over and Under the Rainbow Nation. It didn't get called that, so I'm just going to throw it in here. And you can see here Cape Town, where I live, and the rainbow, which I will speak to. And I think everybody who's in this audience knows where South Africa is, at the very tip of Africa. So you can imagine that we are sitting together as I share a little bit of the story of IMISA and the story of teaching in this part of the world. And I'm sure that there are many other voices in this audience who could add to this conversation. Yeah, so South Africa, you'll see, is a fairly large country, and it's a country of 50 million people. There are 11 official languages, and it's a very dynamic place to live. It's also a place with cohesion and fragmentation at the same time. That certainly is my experience of it. And I think many people will be familiar with who I think is, one of our key mindfulness teachers in South Africa and in the world, perhaps, is Nelson Mandela. And just to share his quote, which I think speaks to you, what you were speaking about, Katerina, in your wish at the beginning of the session, that no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate, and as if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. And so that speaks to you know, the greeting that we use, or one of the greetings that we use in Southern Africa, Sawubona, which is, I see you and I see all that you represent. And I think many of you know of the word Ubuntu, really meaning I recognize myself in you. And I think she has a picture of Desmond Tutu and John Kabat-Zinn. I think you can all recognize. So we had been teaching in South Africa, MBSR, and we'd been teaching small bits of teacher training when we invited John to come. And he actually did. He came to South Africa and we gave him a really packed schedule. And in that schedule, he got to actually meet Bishop Desmond Tutu, which I think some of you will know of Desmond Tutu. And one of the ways that Desmond Tutu speaks about Ubuntu is he says it's the essence of being human. And he also says it's the part of the gift that Africa is going to give to the world, which I really love. It embraces hospitality, caring about others, being willing to go the extra mile for the sake of another. A person is a person through other persons. My humanity is caught up and bound up in yours. When I dehumanize you, I dehumanize myself. And so it's with that kind of backdrop that, you know, we've been teaching in this part of the world, in South Africa, and also encouraging the spread of mindfulness into Southern Africa. And you know, if you look at the history of Southern Africa and South Africa, we're still working with moving out of the dark shadows of our past, a past where, you know, predominantly Black people live in kind of the pain of 400 years of existence as second-class citizens, as the effect of colonialism, the effect of apartheid, of course, slavery. And so there's that compounded by the impact of really difficult socioeconomic conditions for a large part of the population. So in our mental health care system, there's really a huge lack of capacity for, I read the other day that I think a third of the population struggles with mental health, and we just don't have the capacity to take care of these people. And you know, we have a huge Gini coefficient. If anybody knows what the Gini coefficient is, it's the measurement of inequality according to wealth and that ratio. And I think South Africa is one of the highest, or perhaps the highest in terms of that Gini coefficient, a huge burden of disease. So it's it holds such a huge range of experience and a really difficult history. But at the same time, living here, there's an amazing energy, a huge amount of creativity and potential, and of course, a history of activism. So I wanted to share a little bit, you know, we were having started with just one MBSR with 6 people in the beginning. This kind of grew into teaching more and more programs, and then starting to teach in teacher trainings, which I will speak to in a minute. But I wanted to share a little bit more of the texture of being in this part of the world and some of the issues that it can evoke. So this was where we held our conference, our last conference pre-COVID in 2019. This is the cradle of humankind. It was declared a World Heritage Site in 1999 because it's got a wealth of humanoid fossils that were discovered there. And I think man's oldest ancestor, Naledi, the bones of Naledi, or the fossils are there. And so we thought, you know, this would be a good place to hold a conference such as this. And it was an amazing few days. But what I want to share is just the panel at the final day of the conference, the very, very last day. And over here, we've got one of our graduates, Pateka, on the left, and in the middle, we've got a healer, and Sinotemba. And Sinotemba was doing her PhD and was going to present her like research, but she's a traditional healer, and she had been really struggling in those few days leading up to the conference and in the conference, because she had been in communication with the ancestors during that time, and the ancestors were not happy that actually we were in a venue kind of walking on the bones of the ancestors. And so in that final session, she kind of melted into tears and shared this with the audience. She kind of let go of the notes and just shared from her heart this experience, and shared, you know, some of the ritual that she'd done to kind of work with us in the days of the conference. So I'm just feeling that moment. And so what that resulted in was this incredible sharing in the conference. The mic went around the room. People started to share from their hearts about the history, about the heritage, about our struggles and challenges. And at the very end, Pateka got up and actually sang this most beautiful song. So in a way, for me, that was kind of this beautiful merging of what we were trying to bring as a scientific mindfulness conference with all the research and all the kind of sessions, but really looking at embracing our history, our heritage, and what does it mean to be teaching in this part of the world, which has been an ongoing discovery, certainly for me. I also wanted to put a picture of Baba Mandaza in, because Baba Mandaza opened our conference and closed our conference with the most beautiful prayer and honoring of the earth, because in this part of the world, you know, our ancestors are not just, you know, our human ancestors, but it's our earth and our planet and the rocks and the trees and everything that surrounds us. So there are so many layers to teaching mindfulness in South Africa and Southern Africa. 2012 saw the launch of our university-based training, and the idea was we were going to build medium and long-term capacity career paths, and there was a vision of creating a generation of practitioners, so that we could bring mindfulness into healthcare, into education, into business. And so we had a 2-year training that was developed with 4 modules over those 2 years, in kind of 8 to 10 week kind of blocks. And we've run that 2-year training. We ran 5 cycles of that. And I'm really happy to see that there are a number of the graduates of that 2-year training in the room today. So it's so wonderful that you are here to maybe share a little bit of your experience. And it wasn't just people from South Africa. So it's become a place through which people from Southern Africa could come and learn. So we've had people from Malawi and Botswana and Zimbabwe, and so beyond the borders of South Africa. So here we are in one of our retreats. And so through that, we've trained over 200 trainees. And the idea was that we would use MBSR or MBCT as the foundation, so that people could go into wherever they are and teach, and not always MBSR or MBCT, but some form of mindfulness-based program that was relevant. And so what was most touching? I mean, everybody who's gone through the program has been amazing and has shared in some kind of way in our context. But what we started to really see was that we had trained a number of health professionals, and they were doing amazing things. So I know we've got Sarah. I saw Sarah in the audience, but I know, Sarah, your internet might not be great. But what happened was we also started to see amazing adaptations to the program. So Sarah did a beautiful intervention of a mindfulness parenting program in a place called Mitchell's Plain, which is a place filled with violence, challenges, socioeconomic challenges, And through that program of teaching mindful parenting, the conversation around violence and violence towards the children and recognizing violence that had been passed through the generations could slowly start to be looked at and transformed. So Sarah, I'd love you at the end if you want to add anything, because this is just like a brief overview of some of the things that have happened, and Janine will share more. And this is Pateka, who I showed you earlier in the conference. This is where Pateka works, which is a program called Loaves and Fishes. And it's a program that brings feeding and also emotional support to, I think it's 1,200 children. And you can see the conditions that they live in, you know, lack of electricity, water, proper supplies. And Pateka actually did an MBSR and then decided that there was a link between mindfulness and Ubuntu. And she really wanted to explore that link and also look at sharing mindfulness with the people who work at Loaves and Fishes. And so she ran the first program that I know of in isiXhosa, along with some others that have shared along the way. So it's been inspiring to be a part of the 2-year training. But after running it for 5 cycles, we were left with some questions. And so we realized that a shift was needed, and we paused the training. And we started to ask some really difficult questions, like there's a barrier of entry to do this course, and there's a level of education that's required. So how do we make it affordable and inclusive for people who don't have that? How do we build capacity not only to offer it as, you know, to middle-class professionals, but to find ways to support and fund community-based counselors and to bring mindfulness to their contexts? How do we fund it? And how do we find people who have the desire and the affinity for the practice? And also, how do we infuse our training program with an ethic that's congruent to the Dharma, but also sensitive to our local context? So we did a lot of reflecting and thinking, and that's resulted in where we are now, which is a birth of a new way of training, which we've called sharing mindfulness as opposed to teaching mindfulness. And what has happened is we've developed the Tier 1 training. A lot of this has come through the research of Dr. Simon Weitzman and his PhD, where he looked at what happened for people in the program and what worked and what didn't work. And so it's resulted in a training that's now sensitive to trauma and its impact. It looks more at self-regulation. It looks a lot at compassion training. And so it is trauma sensitive. It's not a trauma course, but it is a trauma sensitive course where participants leave being able to not necessarily teach a program, but to be able to share mindfulness and mindfulness practice in some form in their particular context. And so these are the kinds of people that we used to have in the initial 2-year training, but these are the invitation is to, any of these people who are interested in the training. And the way that it looks is it's now a 3-month online training, and it's run by a senior teacher, and we've got 2 apprentice teachers from diverse backgrounds. And I won't go into the ins and outs of like what it looks like, but you can see that we've tried to make it much more accessible, much more doable, but also with a lot of layers of relationality. So one of the main focuses of this program is on relationship and community, and teaching mindfulness within our particular communities. And also another one of the focuses is really looking at trauma and trauma sensitivity, and making that kind of more of the backdrop. So we are learning. As we were saying, Katerina, at the beginning, we're all learning. It's still experimental, and there's feedback loops coming as we move into our 3rd cycle, which Barbara is running. She's on the call. So I hope, Barbara, you get to wave and say hello. But we've already learned how to modify the curriculum from 2 cycles, and we're still thinking about how to keep it relevant and compelling, and how to honor the Dharma that is part of this land, which is still in its infancy. And I wanted to share the words of Simon because he's not here today, and I think he captures it really beautifully. And this is something he said, which is, there's a rawness and immediacy of trauma that's impossible to escape. It's always in your face, as you can see from the photographs. We always feel it living here. And it's impossible to live in a society without being influenced, whether you're aware of it or not. To allow myself to be affected by what's happening in its rawness and intensity, and to work within myself to channel that energy into the curriculum and process. There's no separation between my experience, others' experiences, the curriculum, and the wider embrace. So I'm going to switch to Janine. As you can see, I've put in a few comments from the previous participants, but she's going to speak more to some of our bursaries. And I also, just before I close, want to say that if anybody's interested, there is some of the South African research on our IMISA website. You know, IMISA is a labor of love. It's a labor of the heart. We're not funded by a university or an organization. It's just a bunch of really committed hearts and people who share themselves in the most generous way in many aspects of holding and running the institute. And so, but the research is really people who've gone out there, been interested, and kind of funded themselves to research. So I will pause it there. I'm sure I can come back at the end and say a few words, but yeah, Janine, if you're around, you can step in. I'll stop the share.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay, so I'll carry on. Thank you so much, Linda. Okay. And thank you so much for letting us know a little bit more about IMISA and the background to it. So I've got some stories, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to share this. This comes from Didi Mahwasha. She's one of our directors. But unfortunately, it's a very big video. It's very large, and so it doesn't seem to translate so well when I try to show it on Zoom. But maybe I'll just let you know a little bit about Didi's story. So Didi relates how she was fortunate enough to actually go to a private school, but that actually, you know, she was born at a place where actually Black people were given much poorer education than white people. It was part of our pain of apartheid. And so as she got older, she decided that she wanted to be part of the change, and she started an organization that would be looking at education. And then in that time realized that a lot of the people that she was working with, a lot of the young people she was working with, had, while they were struggling with education, they also had a lot of the emotional and mental challenges. And so she brought in some psychologists and then started teaching mindfulness, and has some beautiful stories about what a difference it made in these very poor young people's lives. So the one story was that they did a walking meditation, and this young girl came to her and said, you know, Didi, I have to walk really long distances to school every day. And now that I am able to do the walking meditation, I walk to school, and all the time I'm actually considering where I'm putting my feet, and one step at a time, and before I know where I am, I'm at school. And it's made such a difference to my walk to school. It's just a really simple thing. And then she told another lovely story about how a young girl came to her and said that there was that she had no food in her house, and she was the eldest of the siblings. And a man had been courting her and wanting to sleep with her, become, we call it in South Africa, like a sugar daddy. And she was thinking, well, maybe she would do that just so she could have food, to be able to give food to her siblings. And she came to her after the all-day silent retreat and said, you know, Didi, in the silence, I realized that although I would be having food for a while, it wouldn't actually be the right thing to do. And I realized that I need to say no to him. And so these are lovely stories which just illustrate the power of mindfulness, even in very poor communities. So just to let you know a little bit more about kind of the nuts and bolts and the running of the organization, obviously the training is a core part of what we do. And if anyone's got questions about it afterwards, we'll be able to speak to that. But we also do some other things too. So Linda spoke about the research. We're very proud of the research and our research page that we have got. And we've got a real intention to be increasing the research that's coming out of Africa. In terms of the size of the organization, we currently have 150 paid members. It's about the equivalent of just under 10 euros a month that people pay. So it does help us just in our running costs. We have about 2,500 people on our database. And as Linda said, we've now got 200 graduates of the 2-year training program, or over 200 graduates, and about 65 graduates of our new 3-month training program already. And then we've also got social media presence in all the places that people have social media presences. We have regular learning forums. This is an interactive online meetings, and we're covering a wide range of subjects, and these we try to have every month or two. This was one from last year. And we'll be having a learning forum, for example, in next week on MBCT. I see that Matthew's here. Matthew's one of our teachers, is very has a lot of experience in running MBCT courses, and he'll be speaking about that together with someone who works in the Neuroscience Institute in Cape Town, looking at MBCT and giving us some reflections on it. We'll be also future learning forums will include a discussion with Paula Ramirez. We know her. She works with in refugee camps around the world. We've got one coming up on mindfulness and pain control, and also one on mindfulness and addiction. During COVID, we actually started online meditations every Monday morning, and it's guided by facilitators from our community. This is free, and anybody can join. And we have around 35 people every Monday morning joining us for our guided live meditations. But we also have an intention to have meditations available on our website in South African languages. And so we have them in South African English, in Afrikaans, isiZulu, isiXhosa, and Swahili. And we hope to increase the numbers of meditations so that, yet again, it's part of our intention of accessibility. We run many local workshops. So Choden, who is a monk who lives in the UK. He's originally from Cape Town in South Africa. He ran a workshop on an in-person workshop on wisdom in January this year. He'll be with us again next year to run more on wisdom. And last year he was with us when he ran a workshop on compassion. So this is just from this year's workshop. And we're very excited that Minya Rinpoche is going to be coming to South Africa in August. And we're looking at running a workshop in some kind of way, collaborating with Turga International. And we're really excited about all the international events that we were part of. So last year when we met Katerina and many members from eamba, we were at the John Kabat-Zinn retreat at the Omega Center in upstate New York. Last year, we are part of an international online hub for the International Conference of Mindfulness. About 60 members of our community tuned in to listen to the lectures. And we've really been enjoying joining events organized by the global community and feeling as if we are more part of the global community. Also, you know, we have these other connections and collaborations with eamba. Thank you very much. We're trying to grow a network in Africa with the Mindfulness World Community, with the International Mindfulness Integrity Network. We have people who sit on that. We have people who are part of the Mindfulness-based supervision and mentoring networks and the Mindfulness Initiative. And so I said to you, we were going to tell you a little bit about some of our stories. And so I've just got a few pictures here of some of our other recipients. And yet again, you can see that these recipients weren't necessarily training 8-week courses, but actually finding ways in which they could be using mindfulness or sharing mindfulness practices within their everyday work life. And really, these people are part of the reason why we have changed the focus of our training. So just to tell you about a couple of people, this is Samba. She's a general practitioner and lifestyle medicine doctor in Botswana. So that's Samba has been taking mindfulness into her work and actually is part of the Lifestyle Medicine Organization of Africa and has been speaking at conferences in Nigeria. And so there are ways in which we have teachings and that these just ripple out, you know, further and further out into the world. This is Lubabalo. Lubabalo is a Catholic priest. And he was introducing mindfulness into his local congregation, but he also was the priest that was actually charged with looking after clergy on sabbatical. These clergy came from all over Southern Africa. They were both nuns as well as priests. And as part of their sabbatical, he actually introduced mindfulness to them and mindfulness practices, which they then took back to their communities. We talked about Pateka. I think that one of the lovely things about what Pateka did was with Barbara over here is that instead of doing a mountain meditation, we found that many of the people that they were working with didn't really understand what a mountain was, being used to just the sea and kind of rolling hills. And instead they adapted it and they did a tree meditation and feeling really rooted in the ground and then, you know, with branches going up into the sky. And this is our lovely Mboyi. He unfortunately was also unable to join us this evening. And, you know, Mboyi has a real heart for working with young Black professionals, often working in spaces that certainly are unfamiliar to their parents and to their communities, and actually using mindfulness as ways that they can regulate and become present in often very stressful places. And through all the teaching that Mboyi has done, he has now been offered a job as a manager in one of the big NPOs in South Africa, where he's overseeing all the teen programs and will be able to share mindfulness with, you know, an even broader section of the community through what he's doing. And so we really thank people for the donations and the donations that we've got. This a bursary for a student to do the tier 1 training is about 800 euros. And this over here is a picture of recipients from bursary recipients. Sorry, it's a picture of bursary recipients, and they're just little messages of thanks that we sent to the people who had been very generous donations for donors, and had actually made you know, them, that they were able to do the program. It made it possible for them to be able to do the program. And so yeah, we thank you for that. And I thought that what I'd like to end with is actually our national anthem. And so our national anthem is something that we're very proud of. It's very interesting because our national anthem starts off with Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, which basically means God bless Africa. But pre-94, pre our democracy, it was actually seen as a struggle song. And you'll see that halfway through, it changes, and the key changes. And the second part of the national anthem is actually the national anthem that was part of apartheid South Africa's national anthem. And so it's a national anthem that has 5 different languages. It starts off in Xhosa, Zulu, and Swahili, and then changes into Afrikaans and English. And we're really proud of it because it's a symbol for us of reconciliation and hope. So if you don't mind, I shall be sharing our national anthem with you. I'm just going to, sorry, I just need to get to it. So thank you, everybody. We'll just open it up now to discussion and questions.
Thank you very much, Janine and Linda. I was touched by the energy that radiated from the screen when you displayed the anthem. And maybe we can publish the link because I couldn't hear the song.
Yeah, apologies. It seems as if it
No,
was.
you can't. I mean, that's technical. We can mend that. I think that you also mentioned that Barbara wanted to say a few words, or someone else. If that is the case, Barbara, please don't hesitate. And you also mentioned another name, Janine. So let's make sure that we hear all the voices before we open up to questions. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly?
If anybody here would like to, I see that that Samba is here from Botswana as well. But I'm sure if anybody would like to add anything, they're welcome to.
Yeah, I see Sarah is here, but I know that her internet's not great. But if she wanted to share a little bit, and Srini, I know you've done some amazing work that you might want to share. And Barb's, of course, if you want to share anything about, you know, the cycle that you're on, and because Barbara is running our current cycle of the teacher training. Or anybody else, like, you know, there's a lot of graduates from the 2-year program. So if there's any other comments you want to share, just, you know, your voices are so welcome.
So perhaps maybe I can start, seeing that we're in the midst, we're sort of going into week 3 of our 10-week program, cycle 3 at the moment. And we've got a full course of 22 people, and covering all walks of life and different cultures. And it's a really lovely, inclusive and diverse group. And the level of engagement is really deeply touching. And also the courage and willingness to be vulnerable, and really wanting and a deep passion to actually deepen one's own personal practice, but really focusing on how we can actually serve others. But I also wanted to say, with the whole vision of wanting to make the training more inclusive and more affordable, to ripple out into our wider communities. For me, what has also been really important, that part of the vision of this training is also to develop the capacity within our own organization. And so we're kind of growing and developing the capacity for people who into supervisory roles. We have trained a whole lot of new people to mentor on the program. And we're also bringing up and taking people who've been through our 2-year program to actually to shift from being teachers into sort of apprentice trainers, and hopefully to develop that path. So I really love the focus on taking this work out into the rest of Southern Africa, but also we taking very seriously of tending to that which is within our own family, and growing our own family and developing skills and capacity. So yeah, I love the fact that we're doing both. And yeah, so thank you. And thank you, Janine and Linda, for really beautifully representing the heart of our work. And I think when I think of the work we do here, it is hard work, and which speaks to sort of our African heritage, the earth and the African sky. It's very sort of tangible, sort of bringing those natural elements into our work. So there's a sense of real groundedness and passion, both in the course and within our community. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Barbara. Maybe I can start off with a question. I heard that you offer the training to be as accessible to everyone who would like to take it. What about the offering for the society? You said that about 1 in 3 people have mental health problems. Has the availability of your offering mindfulness practice, not the teaching, but that you have teachers available, and if I counted right, 265 now. Have you been able to offer that in this mental health crisis that you described?
Thanks, Katerina. I'm sure, Janine, you can say more, but I think, it's a drop in the ocean, really, given what is here in this country. But this is part of the reason why we've, the impetus to create a different training where, sharing of mindfulness as opposed to running mindfulness programs, sharing of mindfulness in particular communities that might never get to experience mindfulness has become it's kind of like, it feels like we turned the training on its head and looked at, what is the core thing that we want to be able to train people to do. And really what is calling at the moment is there's so many areas, communities that would never get a chance to do this, that, if we train some people to be able to go out and do more of this, then, it's a drop in the ocean, but it's something, and it's kind of better than keeping on doing what we were doing, which would be great, but wouldn't necessarily reach the people that also need to benefit. We all need to benefit from mindfulness, but there were communities that were not going to be reached. So that's part of the reason why the training has shifted. So Janine, Barbs, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you answered that well.
Did I see you raise your hand, Teresa? No? Okay. Then allow me a follow-up question, because I'm very interested that some of us who would like to serve communities as you do, I saw that you had a priest. I mean, that person has a congregation that he will offer mindfulness or share mindfulness with, or a medical doctor. What other, those people have contracts, so they can share mindfulness without any remuneration. What other examples are there to make access to mindfulness practice easy for people who are in need of it?
Linda? Just,
Janine?
yeah, so as Linda was saying, is that what we are training is that people already have a sphere of influence. So they're working in NPOs, or they are healthcare professionals, or they are teachers, or they're working in corporate. And that, especially in the first, in the training which we're doing now, and there is going to be follow-up training, so that we will still be training people who want to teach 8-week courses, or who want to deepen their practice. But for people come to us, and it's actually ways in which they can share mindfulness within their sphere of practice of where they're already at. And we were just giving you some examples of people who've come and done the training with us, and then the ways in which they've shared that in their particular space where they already are. So instead of teaching an 8-week course, they actually are then sharing mindfulness practices within their workspace.
So thanks, Janine, and Srini. I think you're a great example of that. I don't know if you are still there, but if you're willing to share, a little bit around how you've brought it into Khayelitsha, and share a little bit around, your work there, I think that would maybe give us a personal share of how you've done that. Srini? I don't know if you can hear me.
Hi,
There you are.
Linda.
Hi.
Hi,
Sorry to
Linda.
put on you in this
No,
way.
not a problem. Linda and Janine, and yeah, thank you. I sent a little comment in the chat. I just wanted to thank you for the amazing work and the amazing contribution. And for many, many years, you've been the foundation of my mindfulness-based practice. So, deep, deep appreciation to you all. And it's wonderful to hear about this growing family and collaboration with the eamba. Yeah, just very little. It's just there's a small contribution to, the medical students and the healthcare workers that actually worked in a very difficult setting in Kalicha, which is one of the largest, African townships in Cape Town. Without going into too much detail, I can say with a certain degree, conviction that it certainly helped my practice, working in a very difficult setting, and really helped medical students and the staff, working in quite a challenging community. Yeah, I'll leave it at that, and just really encourage you all to keep up with the excellent and very important work that you're doing. So some heartfelt gratitude and appreciation, and a big thank you. And in fact, very interesting, that from 2005, 2006, or 2007, when IMISA started, we started a small group of medical students where we used to meet weekly on campus. And it's actually quite amazing that, almost 18, 20 years, I'm still in contact with some of them. And we sometimes meet for a cup of mindfulness, shared coffee or cappuccino, and catch up of all the work that we've done and all the sharing that we've done. So yeah, thank you all.
Thanks.
With deep appreciation.
Thank you. I guess I was calling on you as well because I always remember how, in Khayelitsha as a medical doctor, you as opposed to running programs, you kind of went there and would just get nurses to do yoga in the middle of a meeting, in a way, kind of really bringing it into the situation that you were in. So, this is what we're encouraging is, that kind of work. And if I look at Sarah Fall, you're there, and, the work that Sarah did was really, like by going into a community and running a program on parenting, it kind of like we could have had mental health professionals going in and giving talks on violence, but instead, Sarah went in with a colleague, taught a program, and through the practice itself started to, create an impact on the understanding of violence and the understanding of parenting in a community that, where there's a lot of violence. So really, I'm kind of reminded of, I think it's Margaret Mead who said, don't doubt that a small group of committed citizens can change the world. So it's more kind of like by instilling people to go into their communities and impact in one way or another, not to underestimate what that might do. So that's really part of the intentionality, Katerina, behind IMISA and everything that it does.
And Sarah will be speaking up for us now. And thank you, Srini, for sharing that. And thank you, Sarah, for sharing your experience. Please take.
Gladly, I just do apologize for, I've got a funny connection thanks to my local network line. So I've got to embark on a process of repairing that. But we might lose a few words every now and again. But firstly, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to you for hosting this forum. It's really so wonderful, I think, for the broader community to find out what's happening in South Africa with mindfulness, because I think they're doing some very unique and very beautiful and really important things in this country. And I noticed at the latest mindfulness conference that there was just one paper, Simon's paper, presentation on what's happening in the Global South. So I think it's very exciting for us to be here presenting to the global north today, and for you to hear something about what's going on in our country. That as Janine and Linda have spoken to, is, it's just a place that is, I think, quite unique in the sense of the love that we have for our land, and the particular energy that emanates from the curious circumstances in this country. It's very special. And I feel so privileged that I was able, through a colleague who worked already within the Muslim community. It is the community that we did work in Mitchell's Plain is called Tafelsig, and it is literally the most gang-ridden, violent little pocket of a suburb within Cape Town. And this colleague of mine had a connection with a local mosque there that was very impoverished and had very few resources. And she was keen to run a parenting program and asked me to come on board with her. And I said, well, why don't we weave, because mindfulness was my thing. So why do we weave mindfulness in with it? And so we ran a standard parenting program based on the program that the Parent Center offers. The Parent Center is a South African parenting organization. And we literally just wove the mindfulness practices in. So we would do sitting practices and walking practices and movement practices and some other, we sort of ad-libbed a bit with some other kinds of, it was a beautiful hand massaging practice that we did. People got into pairs and they really sort of sat in silence and massaged one another's hands, which was such a beautiful thing to do. And I think what it did was it just deepened the group's capacity to engage with the parenting materials. And they were going home and they were sitting and doing their mindfulness practices and then putting them into action in their families. And hearing their responses as they came back every week was remarkable. There was one, she was a granny actually, and she said she had a son who was a drug addict, and he was very violent. Violence was sort of part and parcel of their families. And she said she had never told any of her children that she loved them, and they'd never told her that they loved her. And she just, every time that they came home, she just got ready to hit them because she knew they'd done something bad. It was automatic that they would have done something terrible in the course of the day. So one day, she had been practicing the pause and noticing that there was a point at which she could stop and rethink things and make a different choice. And she saw her son coming home. He was in his 20s already. He was grown up. And she thought, well, instead of hitting him, I'm just going to tell him I love him. And they had this amazing interaction where there was some music playing, and she told him she loved him, and he told her he loved her, and they put their arms around one another, and they started dancing. And I think that there were lots of stories like that. I think that's an amazing example of how something as simple as having the environment where you can come to stillness and notice your automatic reactivity and practice that, and then take that home with you and see what happens. I think that's incredibly powerful. And I'd love to see more of that. I'd love to see ways of making that happen more in South Africa. I think one of the biggest problems in this country is funding. I think there are a lot of people who have great intentions and a great deal of will to go out and do this kind of work, but we have to put bread and butter on our tables. So how do we do that? How do we create a living for ourselves and also do this kind of work? Funding is really necessary. And then recently I was doing some work with an organization called The Big Issue, which also works with low socioeconomic population. And I ran a kind of a workshop for one of the groups of participants in the program. And it was just a half an hour sort of, I'm going to tell you what mindfulness is. What mindfulness is, just an introduction to mindfulness. And at the end of that little workshop, they were like, oh, we need more of this. Please, can you come again? We really need this. And that was, that was wonderful. But the MD who was sitting there as well said, the thing is that if you do this and you work with this kind of thing, all sorts of stuff is going to be brought to the surface. And we're going to need a whole backup team of psychologists and counselors to hold what emerges. So that, I think, is something really important to consider in doing this work. That's what's come up for me in my experience, the importance of having some sort of a system as well that can hold difficulty when it arises, because the last thing, much as Linda, as you were saying, it's not a reason to stop us doing the work. It must be done. But on the other hand, we need to be aware that there might be difficulties that arise and they need to be held. We need to build that all in to what is offered. So yeah, I'm so grateful to, I think I could go on all evening. I'm sorry, I feel as if I've been talking for ages, but I love this work so much and I feel it's so vital. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share.
And thank you for sharing. Very courageous. And I just saw that Samba, you are here now. Didn't see you before. So if you would love to speak up, and I think I remember from a previous event that you preferred to not put your camera on. That is perfectly all right. If we can hear your voice, that would be beautiful. Oops, I chased her away. Oh, there you are. There you are.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah, thank you, Katrina.
You
Yeah.
want to put your camera on.
Yeah,
Do you allow me to spotlight you, then we can see better? Is that okay for you?
that's fine. That's fine. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah. I guess I just want to thank you, Amber, for inviting IMISA here, but I just want to express my gratitude to IMISA for the scholarship that I got. I live in Francistown, so Botswana, northeast Botswana, and it used to be a long trip. Take the bus from Francistown to Joburg, and then take the flight from Johannesburg to Cape Town and go here. But it was fun and worth it, worth every moment of it. I'm so grateful for the training, the learnings that I got, and for the connections that I made. And over the years, well, COVID came in and we had to finish things online, and that was fine as well. But, over the years, how that foundation of the mindfulness-based interventions has helped me so much in my work as a general practitioner, working with the patients, the clients that I serve. As I like to say, that coming here into this space, I had to unlearn some of the things that I had got trained in as a doctor, that when I see a patient already, I must be having a good idea about the diagnosis, the treatment, then just having this open mind and just being open. I used to wonder whether, I used to wonder whether the medical training, I would forget that, but no, the medical training is there. All the skills are still at the back. But I've just learned that just being present and with my patients allows them to be more open, and I get to know and to understand them much more, and they feel heard and they feel understood. And what I love most, especially working around the feelings, anxiety, etc., is that when many would come looking for a pill for their anxiety or their sleep, whatever, just in talking through it, whatever, would help them to understand that how they can work with the feelings, emotions without having to over medicate. It's not that I don't prescribe, I prescribe, but I'm just explaining to me what the power of these practices has been in terms of easing suffering with less side effects, so to speak. And working with my patients, running some trainings for them, etc. And then during COVID, I was able to hold some online Zoom meetings where people could just be coming in to just, if they needed a place to just process the grief, whatever thing, just holding the space for them, because this is some of the things that I learned here. And I've also shared that I have my journey with being in trouble with alcohol as a substance, and how just being here in this space has helped me to be able to deal with those fears and anxieties that used to drive the crazy drinking, and how that is now being something that I can also offer others, that that there's a way out, because there's many of us, especially as healthcare workers, who maybe living in shame and whatever because of the misuse of substances. So that's another area of work that I do a lot of, and and also supporting people with overeating and all that. So I'm really, really grateful for the foundation that IMISA helped me to find, and that we are now doing more and more work on reaching different communities in Africa in different ways. Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you, Samba. What you just said reminds me of a doctor we had in this eamba exchange last year on mindful communication together with Rosamund Oliver. And she talked about having learned deep listening. And in the European countries nowadays, many doctors, they have to finish the diagnosis in like 2 or 3 minutes, and they didn't have enough time. So she said, I was so busy with the administrative process that I didn't have time to listen to the patient. And after the training in mindful communication, she changed that. And she said, I now only ask my patient, what's up? And then I start listening and I get so much relevant information, and it saves me so much time to really get to the root cause, that it's the best question I ever asked. What's up? And then listen. So thank you for sharing that, what you are doing. It's the same, listening. Oh, thank you, Teresa. Teresa just she has to go, but she sends her gratitude to all of us. So I'm not time pressured. If we have things that we would like to exchange, I'll keep this open. So please come and share. Kim, are you moving to come and share? No?
No, I'm not actually, but I will share a little
Thank
bit.
you.
I'm very new to this game. I actually did my training with Karen Atkinson at Mindfulness UK. Hi, Karen. So I haven't really inculcated myself in IMISA yet. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to see who's who here. And to hear about what South Africans are doing and how I can start sharing my mindfulness with South Africans. I work in a higher institution at the moment, training medical students. So I think I'm ideally placed really to share mindfulness with registrars and medical students. It's just a matter of doing it. So I'm more inspired again tonight. So thank you very much, and thank you for letting me share. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Karen, anything you would like to add? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yes. My very best friend lives in Cape Town and I come there often, and I'm just so inspired by what you're doing. I know absolutely the challenges that you're facing, and I can just completely appreciate the depth of work that you're doing. And yeah, I'm so grateful. Thank you. Mm.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, I feel very touched that we are allowed to hear you and you're ready to share. And as I said at the beginning, the learning doesn't stop while we are here. I already feel the vibration and the inspiration that is coming from what you're all doing, and really, really grateful. Marina, I'm wondering whether you have heard things that in the difficult situation in Ukraine where you are working in shelters and in schools and cellars, is there anything that you heard that you can take back, or something that you experienced that you resonate with, that we could offer to the colleagues in South Africa? Because you're working in a very, very difficult situation yourself.
Yes, I'm sorry for my English, and I'm really appreciate what you are doing here, and it's amazing job. If I'm talking about myself particularly, I don't work in shelters. Yes, I'm a mindfulness ambassador teacher, and I have my group. Now I have usually online groups. But as I know, my colleagues try to do something with even with military. I don't know exactly their program. It is different than MBSR. Maybe it's something connected with nature or something like this. But yes, it's difficult and very unsafe situation. That's why the majority of my colleagues don't do it in how to say offline, yeah, because rockets and everything, and personally, I don't want to be responsible for people who have this, who share this place. And it's very touching when we hear, we have mobile phones and the sirens, and we are meditating. It's so touching and amazing. And our training, it was first training in Ukraine, and it was, how to say it in English, postponed because of war, but we did it, and it was very hard time, and for all participants it was so so touching to have together every week. And yes, maybe I'm not the right person who can explain how we work in Ukraine, and maybe next time my colleagues who are more engaged in this can represent. But
Okay, Marina, it's
yeah.
fine. Yeah, and for all of you who would like to know about training of the veterans in Ukraine, we have a recording in the Mindfulness World community where Walter from your country was speaking, and he especially is training with veterans and with families of military people who have lost fathers or mothers in the war. But that's very specific. And anyone who wants to know about that, please write to Eamba Exchange or write to Janine. And then we will make sure, Janine, you also have access to the recording because you're a member of the Mindfulness World community. With this, I would like to hear any voice that we haven't heard and that would like to share. You're most welcome. We are not bound by time. We are. I had a funeral today of a very lovely friend. So we are bound by time, but that is only our lifetime. It's not the time we are having here. Yes, Michael, please. You raised your hand. Can you
Hello.
open your phone, please? Where are you? Can't see you.
Can you see me?
Yes, now I do.
Okay. So I just want to share that my training with Linda and Simon and Barbara somewhat coincided with me starting to offer it started off with an idea that I would share some free yoga classes at the beach in Cape Town. And actually the whole reason why I wanted to offer the free yoga was to try and entice people to come and swim in the cold Atlantic Ocean with me, because it had been such a healing experience for me. There were long history, also addiction struggles with me, and so the being in the cold water was truly a remarkable embodiment experience that helped me through all of my self-healing journey. So I decided to offer free yoga at the beach, and it sort of coincided. I was in the 2-year program for about 6 months when I started. So 3 years ago, I started offering this beach yoga, and it's been the most rewarding experience ever for me. The first session about 3 years ago, there were 8 people that joined, and I think 2 of them swam with me in the sea. And recently we had a beautiful summer's day, and I think there was close to 180 people on the grass and about 50 people swimming. And so it's just, and all throughout that journey, I was learning through the program offered by IMISA. I was learning to share some of those fundamental practices within I took every opportunity to share what I was learning during these yoga classes at the beach. But the real rewarding part for me was I get people almost every week, because it's a weekly class that we do, sending me an email, sending me a message just about how it shifted something within them, and how they've now been inspired to take steps to be a little bit more aware of their own well-being, and how it has spilled over into their families and their communities from which they come. So yeah, so a big thank you to IMISA, because it gave me the perhaps the confidence and the tools to be able to hold space for so many people, of which they were complete strangers, and now it's grown to something where it's my favorite day of the week when I'm down at the beach offering this yoga and cold water swim event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you. Dear colleagues, we are obviously coming to a close. There is a heart from Sereni.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Sure. Yes.
So, Michael, I'm actually one of your very keen attendees at your yoga session at the beach, and I sometimes take up your offer for a cold water swim. And I must thank you once again, and just vouch for everything that you said. I mean, it's the most beautiful, heartfelt yoga, and I've always wondered where your the beautiful infusion of mindfulness and yoga took place, and it sounds like we both owe a big thank you to IMISA for that. So well done, Michael, and please keep up the good work, the great work, should I say. Thank you.
Thank you, Srini. Well, how encouraging for the work you're already doing and for the eamba community. And I'm very grateful that you join this eamba community and you share and you're with us and we can be with you. While you were talking, I was feeling that I wanted to be with you in your territory. So since we have the same time zone, who knows? Maybe one day you see me down there.
We would love
Please,
that.
I would like to give the word to Linda, Janine, and Barbara to just close, because there are so many colleagues from you here, and maybe say a few words about encouragement And then we close the whole event, and we will be back together.
Yeah, I think what we'd really like to say, Katerina, is thank you so much for inviting us to join eamba. And maybe it's soon going to be not eamba, but IAMBA, so there'll be international associations instead of the European. But it's really been very special for us, this collaboration which we are fostering, in this friendship. You know, you're always welcome in the South African soil. You're always welcome to come and visit us, and you're always welcome to come and be a part of our community in person, not just online. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I will. Magdalena is here. I went to Croatia with 3 broken ribs, so I travel. I will. Yes, thank you for inviting. But the most important thing that I would like to encourage is Gregory Kramer says, we are individual and at the same time relational. So the most important thing that I would like to encourage is benefit from the community. eamba, International Association for Mindfulness Teachers, connects about 6,000 teachers all over Europe, Africa, America, the Middle East. So benefit from that large community. If you need something, if there is something you want to achieve, just call eamba or mail us, because maybe we can network and help you find those resources. You know, Janine, that when we were at Omega last May, you spoke up and you said that donations would help you to achieve your mission. And it was amazing how generous people were in offering donations. So if there is a concrete thing that you need, please remember to speak up and just ask.
Thank you so much.
And as eamba, we can help to make that networking. I mean, eamba as an association, we don't have a lot of money, but we have assets in the way that we can network. We can find people, and people in this community are generous. So please, Marina from Ukraine, maybe you know, there was, I think it was 2 years ago, 1.5, 2 years ago, colleagues from Ukraine needed a program for schools. The people from Portugal, the colleagues from Portugal had a school program that was sent to Ukraine, translated, and within no time, they had a program for schools. So that is the kind of value we can share. And sometimes networking is more valuable than money, but in many cases, we also need money. And let's try to make it happen. Thank you so much for being here. And Linda, Barbara, maybe if you want to add something to this, the floor is still open. Please feel free to speak if you wish to.
Just to echo Janine's thank you, Katerina. There's been so many years I've been part of different communities, but just to feel the welcome that you've brought for us and the generosity of spirit, it's really palpable. And, you know, just having been at Omega with you last year and seen the effect of sharing with the community there, it's really helped to sustain us. So just a big thank you for the donations that have come through and, you know, that allow us to continue to do this work that is really the work of the heart. And also just a deep bow to everybody who's been here today, because I know so many of you, and each, you know, I'm sorry I wasn't able to call on so many of you because there's so many amazing voices and people in this group that, you know, are sharing in this part of the world in beautiful ways. So really just a deep bow to everybody, and to you, Katerina, for including us and letting us feel that real lived sense of Ubuntu. This for me is Ubuntu in action. So thank you.
Thank you.
Totally echo exactly what Janine and Linda say. And yeah, from my heart to everyone's here, and to yours particularly, Katerina. And it was so beautiful meeting you at and Amiga. And what has come out from that has really just been inspiring and heartwarming, and sort of adds to the hope that we can carry on this work that we love. So yeah, thank you, and thank you to everyone here. Lovely to see and hear you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Barbara. Also for that, yes, we can carry on. And if anybody here thinks that you can't carry on anymore, that is what community is for. Connection, community, that is what we give to each other. And we don't need a euro or a penny or what you have. Would have you some South African dollars or things you have there? What is it, rand?
Rands, exactly.
We don't need that. We just need connection. So please speak up, ask, and we will try to make it happen. Thank you for all of you for being here, for connecting, and for sharing. I salute you all. I honor you. Good night.
Good night.
See you again.
Good night. Thank you.